What's up, guys? I'm Joe. Today I'm talking about the latest album from The Sword, Used Future. So The Sword are back with their 6th studio album. This is Used Future. The Sword is an American metal band who has had quite the prolific output. Though they are 6 albums in, they have done it in a relatively short amount of time. They're one that really exploded out of the underground with a very, traditional heavy metal inspired or otherwise doom metal or stoner metal type sound. The vocalist John with a voice very similar to Ozzy Osbourne in its delivery. The first couple records had this raw, heavy sound to them. Very crunchy riffs, very Sabbathy in a way, but, expanding beyond that quite a bit as well. And the band really caught the attention of big acts such as Metallica, who asked them to open up for them, and they've been on a pretty great trajectory since then. Their most recent album, High Country, saw them moving away from that heavier sound. They went to a more classic rock-oriented or even jam band type sound, with some hints of southern rock to go along with it. And it's an album that I thought was pretty good. I liked select songs from it. I didn't think overall it was as compelling as some of their previous work. And that's kind of how I feel about Used Future, the most recent album. Likely to the dismay of some fans, they continue on with that more classic sound, only this time employing a sort of future-esque vibe to it as well. You hear a lot of synths going on here. Not so much that they're like synth, keyboard lines, but really just adding a sort of atmosphere to go on with this used future type theme. For me, it's not the sound that's the problem. I actually do enjoy the sound they've been going for on the last couple of records, this kind of classic feel. The album is filled with a bunch of groove and a lot of great classic or southern style riffs. I just think there's an overall lack of energy on this thing that has me feeling like, I like individual songs. I would go back to them probably quite a lot if I were listening to the band. But it's not an album I think I'll always go back to and listen all the way through. I'm a fan of when you can listen to an album and not really skip anything. For me, I feel like it lags a little bit at times because for the most part, a lot of these songs are pretty chilled out, pretty laid back. And while it works with this sort of atmospheric, future-esque theme, as I said, it does lag. For example, the middle of the album, Sea of Green, Nocturne, don't get too comfortable, especially with Nocturne in the middle there, which is this long, spaced-out, atmospheric type piece. I just feel things starting to slow down, not to mention the fact that some of the more rockers on the album, such as Deadly Nightshade or Twilight Sunrise that open the album up, while I think they are good songs, they keep a sort of mid-tempo vibe mostly through, pretty chilled out. Not to say that these aren't good songs. Like I said, these are songs that I think I would listen to maybe in a mix or something like that, not so much in the context of the full album. What does work for me, though, like I said, is that classic or even southern rock type sound. You're definitely hearing it on the title track, Used Future, which is very reminiscent of a band like Lynyrd Skynyrd. It has this really nice, clean, but also sort of crunchy guitar riff going on, which is, very southern rock infused. And I love the distorted leads that come in later on in the song. That classic southern kind of vibe is prevalent on those earlier tracks as well, Deadly Nightshade. And this one in the vocal delivery is kind of reminiscent of the Eagles, which I think is pretty cool. The way those chords just kind of lay out there and the vocals kind of, croon in between. And up next, Twilight Sunrise has this great groovy riff going on. The drums are really holding it down in the back there, and it really explodes into this nice big chorus, which I like. Perhaps one of my favorite songs on here, Book of Thoth, I'm not sure, it's towards the end of the album, has a nice Deep Purple-esque type crunchy riff to it in the beginning. While I do think this album kind of lacks in energy overall, I think this is one of the better songs, the more energetic and upbeat ones, just to sort of break up that very chilled back vibe. Even in instances like Don't Get Too Comfortable, where it does build up and the guitars are kind of dueling back and forth in their solos, for some reason it just doesn't quite get to that peak for me. I guess looking back at some of their previous albums and then comparing it to them, that's why I sort of feel it just doesn't quite reach the potential that the band does have, even though these songs are pretty much well executed. What I do like is the sort of musical theme that sort of plays throughout the album, tying things together. You hear it in the prelude and the reprise, but you also hear it in Come and Gone. It's this very cinematic soundtrack-like theme that I do really enjoy, and I was really glad to hear it play out into a full song later in the album, so that's definitely going to stand out for me as well. And there's also a number of instrumental tracks on here, so if you're a fan of instrumental music, which I am, it is definitely cool. My favorite probably being The Wild Sky, which has these trippy, psychedelic type verses before going into these pounding drums and riffs. Really great stuff on there. So overall, I just felt very torn as I was listening to this album over and over, really trying to decide what my rating would be for it, or how I really felt about it overall. You know, I go through it and I'm like, oh, I really do like a lot of the tracks on here. It just kind of felt like a chore to listen to it all the way through so many times. So while I wouldn't have a problem with them exploring the sound even more, I think after 2 albums of the, you know, more classic rock infused stuff, they might continue down that path, or even into more psychedelic type territory. I would definitely encourage it. I think they pull it off well. I just feel like I want some of that original energy from the band back. It doesn't have to be heavy, it doesn't have to be that doom metal type stuff, but I think you just need to inject these tracks with a little more. So yeah, I'm feeling like a strong 3 out of 5 for this one. Let me know what you think of the album in the comments, whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.